One.
Hi, everyone. This is Honey Badger Radio. Welcome back if you're still tuning in. And hello for the very first time if you're on my channel. So, hi. I am Allison. I'll be your host. And this is Brian. Hey, I remembered my name. I'm doing good. All right. So, we're going to talk about House of Dragon. I have watched the first 2 episodes of the second season. I've also watched the first season plus a good portion of Game of Thrones. I don't necessarily remember everything that happened in Game of Thrones. So if I make mistakes, just tell me in the comments. I apologize. And this has basically been my journey to try to understand the appeal of the kind of content that Game of Thrones is and House of the Dragon is, and to try to figure it out, to figure out the appeal, to figure out the kind of metric that it should be measured by, if that makes sense, so I can understand how to approach it. Just going to move my thing up a little bit. There we go. And so yeah, it's basically just an exploration of a genre that doesn't necessarily appeal to me. If it is its own kind of genre, like, honestly, epic fantasy lately has been really dark, so I don't know if it appeals to me as much. But anyway, so what I've discovered is that Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon appears to be about people who are failures and sort of psychopathic losing, which I'm not. That sounds like I'm being dismissive, but I'm not. I'm not being dismissive. Apparently, there is an appeal to that, and I'm guessing it's like a catharsis. Like those people aren't as bad as I am, or maybe it's being able to feel like the people in charge are actually cretinous morons that are worse than everybody else. Which, you know, I mean, considering what we're dealing with, I can see the appeal, you know. Well, you know, like the WEF and
Yeah.
Soros and all of that.
I don't know though. I don't know that a lot of people are aware of that. I think they're just watching the show because they just want some fantasy to consume.
Yeah, it's big
Maybe
budget fantasy.
it's
There's that.
It's content.
You know, and it at least it depicts what it's depicting well, right? Like it's but in the previous show I talked about how maybe it's an aspect of a type of storytelling in which you the way that it works is that you take index cards and you write your big emotional moments on them, and you want to hit those emotional moments, and it's a very legitimate form of storytelling, except usually after you figure out the emotional moments you want to hit. In fact, I write in that way too, so I really appreciate it. You tend to go back in and try to figure out how to make them make sense in the context of your characterization and your storytelling, and I feel that particularly House of Dragons, and I'm trying to think how to phrase this. I think that even Game of Thrones, like the original few series, like the original series, sort of maybe falls down a little bit. Actually, less than House of Dragons now, but falls down a little bit on making the characterization consistent and the story building details as well. All right, so let's talk about House of Dragons season 2, episode 2.
Okay.
All right, so in the previous episode, one of my concerns is that they're presenting things in the way that they are because they want to absolve the female characters of all culpability. Of course, that just makes them feel proactive and that everybody under their command is outside of their control, which is really their fault. But regardless, so we do find out now that Rhaenyra is not taking responsibility for her ambiguous statement of "I want Aemon Targaryen," and or "I want Aemon Hightower." Or no, I think it's Targaryen, right? All right, so where we're at in the story is, I think, okay. Sorry, it's really difficult to explain this. All right, so the basic premise of the story is it's 2 women at odds over the succession of the throne. We have, on the one hand, we have Rhaenyra, who was declared heir by her father, despite the fact that Westeros never has had a female regent. But this was a contentious maneuver, and the other person who it has approached gaining power over the throne in a conventional way. She's given birth to the future king, who incidentally she married the father of the princess, the heir apparent. She gave birth to the current occupant of the throne, a younger son of the king, who he did not declare his heir. He kept to his elder daughter by another wife. So they're both contending over the throne, and so there's back and forth. And at this point in time, the mother of the heir, the male heir, has basically enacted a coup and put her son on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
Except that there is again this kind of wishy-washiness. Oh, did she really want to do it? Was it just the words of her dying husband that made her do it? That kind of thing. And in response, one of the supporters of the princess went to the coronation, flambéed a couple hundred people to send a statement, but didn't kill the king or the usurping mother, and then left. And that wasn't apparently a declaration of war, though. That was just an opening salvo of terse negotiations, I guess. I mean, you'd think that somebody taking a weapon of war and opening fire at your coronation, that would be considered an act of war. It certainly is an act of terrorism. I'm pretty sure that when another power around the world kills a couple hundred Americans, the U.S. in a bombing, the U.S. might consider that an act of terrorism. Maybe not an act of war, but on U.S. soil, that would be an act of war. But apparently, that Westeros it's just built different. It doesn't do that. So that wasn't the declaration of war, as far as I can tell. Mm-hmm. All right. So as a result of the tensions, the women start saying, "Well, I got to get my friends. I got to find out who are my allies, because they apparently can't do anything on their own. They need a collective." So they go send out runners to all the lords in Westeros to say, "Are you on my side or not?" And there's a tagline for the show is that all must choose. Okay. So this is a big part apparently of this politics. And now we pick up the story again. And after Rhaenyra sends her second son, the completely personality-less one, and he gets eaten by the second son, the dragon of the second son of Alicent. So that's the queen dowager. And apparently that also wasn't cause for war. I do want to point out that Rhaenyra got her son killed by putting him in that much danger, but that regardless, apparently that wasn't cause for war, or it was, because Rhaenyra subsequently created blockade of the capital of the country, King's Landing, which in any other circumstance, any other part of history, if this was based on humans, creating a blockade would be an act of war.
Yeah.
But apparently we're still in question on the war thing. We're one party, the princess, the princess heir to the throne, is blockading the other party, but apparently we're still not completely sure on the issue of whether or not we're at war.
Mm-hmm.
That's still up in the air. Okay, so
they're building up to something.
The fuck? What are they building? Okay, yeah, you're right. Maybe they can build it higher. I don't know. Like it feels like if you keep building, at some point the payoff is going to be really like a wet fart.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that she's blockading. But what's really interesting about the entire sequence of her losing her second eldest son and then leading up to this blockade is apparently, and when we pick up in the second season, she's lost her second son, right? And there was an end, like this dramatic final moment in the first season when Daenerys learns she's lost her second son, where the camera gets close on her and she looks really determined and angry. And I'm like, hey, that's a declare war face. No. No. Now we open up on the second season and she's grief stricken and waffly. Like, but the thing is, okay, fine, fair enough. She's grief stricken and waffly. In her immediate moment of grief, she seemed determined and angry and ready to declare war. But we open up and she's grief stricken and waffly again. So, all right, fair enough. Okay. But here's the problem, right? The sequence of events has this grief stricken mother, Daenerys, okay, find out that her son was murdered by her opponent's second son. She finds this out and then apparently orders a blockade. Okay. Right. In every reasonable appraisal of the situation, the blockade is a declaration of war. Right? You don't usually blockade people because, I don't know, you want to invite them over for tea, or you're hoping to help their financial system. You blockade people to make them suffer so they concede to your terms, or to reduce their military capability. Right? That's why you do that. That is an act of war. But apparently, Daenerys ordered this act of war in her grief, but then she found more grief that she had to process. So she goes off. She leaves all her underlings dealing with the blockade. She goes off to find her son. And her husband, the prince consort, is sort of chomping at the bit to do something. So he's like, he approaches the aunt who the terrorist who killed a couple hundred people at the coronation, and she's like, bitch, let's go do something proactive. Like, you know, we're doing this blockade. The biggest threat to the blockade is this other dude's big dragon that killed my stepson, right? Let's go kill him. You know, protect the blockade, avenge the death of my stepson, bada boom, bada bing, you know? And she's like, oh, you're such a man. I can't believe you want war. You're such a creature of war, man. I'm like, bitch, you just did an act of terrorism. Like he's saying, let's go after a legitimate military target. Is the problem that he's not saying we should go after a bunch of innocents who have nothing to do with the conflict? Like it's not war crimey enough for you? It doesn't violate the Geneva Convention enough for you? Like, it's a legitimate military target. It's literally a weapon. It's a living weapon, but it's literally a weapon. So he's saying, let's go after their biggest fucking weapon and neutralize it. And it's like, and she's like, oh, you're so bloodthirsty. I'm like, he's the only one here who's making any sense. You're at war. You have a blockade. The threat to your blockade, presumably, you want to keep that blockade running, is the big motherfucking dragon that can flambe the smaller dragons that are keeping your blockade in operation. Like, if your enemy has a weapon that can defy what you're doing to try to inflict pain on your enemy to get them to concede, don't you think taking it out is a really big tactical, intelligent maneuver? And yet, and then she has the audacity to say, the queen is grieving. Bitch, she ordered the blockade. She can't be grieving that hard. Like, what the hell is, it's so freaking convenient.
Maybe naivete is her weakness too.
Naivete is her weakness.
It goes around. It's rampant.
I'm just astounded. It's like, he's being presented as the bad guy, right? He's like, I'm the bad dude. And it's because he's saying, let's go after a legitimate military target that threatens our blockade, which the queen specifically ordered us to do. And the other chick is like, no, it's not war crimey enough for me. She's grieving. I mean, if you wanted me to go after a bunch of peasants having like winter festival, I'd do that. Like, I'd totally flambe those fuckers. But a legitimate military target? That's so bloodthirsty.
Yeah.
Okay, so Damien is the guy that we're pinning all the shit on today. All right, so Queenie goes off and grieves, or sorry, Princess Rhaenyra goes off and grieves, even though she's already basically declared war. Dealing with the war, declaring the war, that was fine. Again, you're blockading your enemy. That is a declaration of war. Sorry, friends, it is. So she declares war, but she can't prosecute it. She can't deal with the details right now because she got to go grieve. So she leaves it to her underlings. But the thing is that apparently she didn't delegate a fucking thing. She didn't tell between her two major underlings who is actually making the decisions about the blockade, right? So they're getting into this argument, which is basically resolved with, oh, Damien, you're so bloodthirsty for wanting to go after a legitimate military target in a war. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry, I might be repeating myself. I'll try to move on from that. It's just so egregious. All right, so Daemon, the queen comes back, or the princess. I'll call them the Princess Rhaenyra is the princess who was named the heir, and then there was the queen who is ruling as the dowager. Okay, so the princess comes back from her grief. She finds the dragon of her son that's obviously dead. She comes back from her grief. She stumbles into the council meeting with all of her underlings, and although she could apparently clearly declare a blockade after her son was done, she is now so stricken with grief she's barely able to function, and she just stumbles up there, says the following: "I want Aemond Targaryen," who is incidentally the person who killed her son. Okay, Daemon is like, "Oh, hey, military target, cool, let's go do it." And so he contracts the stupidest assassins. We covered this last time, but I'm going somewhere with this. He basically contracts the Three Stooges, except there are only two of them. Actually, no, there's three, but the one with the brains is the dog. And he contracts them to go and fumble around the palace until they just happen to run into their target. And because he didn't clarify exactly what they were supposed to do if they didn't find Aemond, when they kill a grandson, rather than Aemond, who's the second son, they kill the son of the first son. I know there's a lot of freaking characters. I really apologize. But they basically just kill a grandson. Because they kill them instead, and he didn't specify, we go back to Rhaenyra's finding out about all of this killing that's been happening. And Daemon once again gets chewed out. But I want to point out something. The entire sequence that ended with the kid getting killed, the grandson getting killed, started with Princess Rhaenyra saying, "I want Aemond Targaryen," right? And then we have a brief stop where the idiot assassins ask Daemon, "Okay, well, what do we do if we can't find Aemond Targaryen?" And we just briefly pause on him smiling ambiguously or just looking flat ambiguously, something. And then we go back to them fumbling around and eventually killing a grandson. Go back to Rhaenyra confronting Damien about this whole thing. And she's basically accusing him of ordering them to kill the grandson. And of course, we, as the audience, were like, "Oh yes, call him out, sister. He's caused all this trouble for you. He's caused the war." And I'm like, okay, so he has to take responsibility for the misinterpretation of an ambiguous smile. Why doesn't she have to take responsibility for the misinterpretation of, "I want Aemond Targaryen, the murderer of my second son"? Like, what the hell did she mean by that? Oh, wait, she's grieving. Okay. All right, that's one of the things that really bugged me about that whole thing. I wish people would stop calling a guy who regularly gets laid an incel. I think they're doing it because they think he's a misogynist. This is Sir Crispin Cole, or whatever the hell his name is. Oh my God! He is being blamed for the fact that Tweedledum and Tweedledee were able to assassinate the grandson of the Queen. He's being blamed because he was porking the Queen while they did it. Except he set a night watch. The guy can't be expected to be defending the castle 24/7. But
apparently the actor Fabian Frankel, who played this character Kristen Cole, he is limiting his comments on Instagram because people are giving him so much hate as though he's actually the person that he plays on the show. So
I don't know why the person. I don't know why the character is getting so much hate. That, oh my God! So they're harassing him.
Yes.
Because of a misinterpretation of his character. Okay, well, let's just talk about the character. Okay, the guy cannot be expected to be guarding everyone 24/7. He set the night watch. The night watch failed to watch, apparently. And this is really hilarious, Brian. You would love this. Okay, so when we ended episode 2, the palace was completely deserted, right? Tweedledum and Tweedledee were able to wander wherever they wanted. They could eat as many tapestries as they could possibly. They could be just they could have had a rave and nobody would have noticed. Like they could have been just dancing with glow sticks and deep bass, and nobody would have even perked up an ear. It was completely deserted. The palace was completely deserted. So Tweedledum and Tweedledee, they had this large argument in the middle of an echoing hall about, where's our target? We got to kill this kid. We got to kill Aemon Targaryen. Is anybody out there who doesn't know that we're here to kill Aemon Targaryen? Well, let me say it even louder. Hey, dude, why can't you find where Aemon Targaryen is? Because we're here to kill him. And I'm like, okay, well, so much for stealth. But, stealth is not an important skill for an assassin. God, no. So they're just wandering through this empty palace. The kid gets killed. And instantly, when we return to the palace, like this must be minutes after the queen finds out that her grandson is killed. The palace is like Grand Central Station. There are literally crowds and crowds of people running up and down freaking stairwells across floors. And I'm like, no. There were guards suddenly. Like, not when they're needed, but after they could have been useful. There are a whole bunch of guards. I'm like, no, it's understandable if there are less people around the palace, but there are things that would be occurring even in a palace at night. Things that you have to do at night. Blanketing fires, dealing with fires, like emptying bedpans, like all this kind of stuff that has to happen at night. Like a lot of cleaning would be happening at night. None of that's occurring. And then suddenly the whole place is like, just like everybody's moving. So it's completely deserted. And then suddenly there's so many people, like lots and lots of people. Because the excuse was that before there just wasn't that many guards or staff. And I'm like, well, they suddenly all appeared when it was too late. And I'm like, anyway, it was ridiculous. But the guy Kristen Cole set a night watchman. So he set somebody up to do the work in the night. I'm going to raise my thing here. Sorry, guys. You're going to see some stuff behind the scenes. So he set this night watchman up. So he can't be blamed for the fact that somebody was not doing his duty, right? Because that wasn't his duty at that time. It was somebody else who was responsible, right? Okay, so he's I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here. I can't believe that he's getting a harassment for this. You know that they call him an incel?
The
actor.
On the internet?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're calling the guy an incel.
Of course they are. the very well paid male actor clearly doesn't get laid. Yeah.
Well, he's even getting laid on he had sex with the Princess Regent, probably not consensually on his part, but now he's having sex with the Queen Dowager. Like the guy gets around. Anyway, God, it's actually really repulsive. Like, this is really bad behavior that they're going after this guy for nothing. But anyway, so he set a night watch, so it's not his responsibility that the kid got killed. Of course, it's being put on him. Anyway, so he has this ridiculous good Lord. He has this situation. You know what? I'm not even remembering what happened. Well, he confronts one of the guardsmen. I don't think he was involved in the actual failure or something. It's hard to actually remember everything that happens or follow the story sometimes.
Yeah.
Because things don't really logically flow into each other. Like they're just like I said, they're these emotional impact moments that don't have connective tissue. So Kristen confronts one of the guards and blames him for being dirty because he's apparently this is some really heavy-handed symbolism about Kristen being upset about his own it's a stand-up of conservatives, you know. Kristen and the Queen Dowager are basically presented as the conservative faction, and they're of course adulterizing and they feel guilty about it, and he's projecting it onto this other guy by saying, oh, your cloak is dirty. Even though, honestly, when I watched that scene, I was wondering, okay, Kristen is his direct superior. He doesn't get up and salute. There's no discipline. There's no sense of hierarchy. Like, where's that? But anyway, then he confronts this guy and says, you can redeem yourself because your brother went off with the princess, the heir to the throne, the princess. You can redeem yourself by going and killing the princess. And I'm like, I know this show is trying to make me hate this man. But once again, we see a man saying, let's go after a legitimate military target.
Yeah.
That would be the person who is directly responsible for the blockade that's causing all of the small people suffering. Like that's what a blockade does. It's going to cause them to starve and die. So Crispin's like, yeah, let's go after the person who's doing that. He's putting up the blockade, who's directly responsible for this blockade. Of course, he doesn't say that. He's like, let's go after Daenerys because she's responsible for killing this kid. So, because, you know, the point is that it's actually Daemon who's responsible for killing the kid. So, and it's being unfairly blamed on Daenerys. And that's so unfair, right, Brian? It's so unfair that a woman is getting blamed for the actions of a man. Good Lord. Well, just blame her for her own actions. She declared the blockade. It's causing everyone to suffer. And she's a legitimate military target. Like, in a world where assassination is political commentary, you know, assassinating the person that's blockading your city and causing everybody to starve and probably will eventually cause disease if it's not lifted. That seems to be like a legitimate, you know, it's within the realm of reasonable. Of course, again, the motive for him to say it is seen as, oh, he's projecting. This is the other thing. All of these characters do not act like they're part of some kind of near modern, like, I mean, it's high Middle Ages, if not Renaissance. They don't act like they're part of that kind of, I mean, it was a hugely hierarchical structure, but there was hierarchy, there was dignity, there was expectations of comportment. These characters do not act like that. They act like they're like the people who are in adult daycare. Like, you remember that woman who was like, oh yes, when I go to work, I start my day.
Yeah. I go to latte, and then here's all the things I'm eating.
Yeah.
Here's all the fun I'm having. Like, there's almost no actual work.
Yeah, it's all like
meetings,
it's
lunch.
This focus on drama and like this focus on personal emotion. So for some reason we are going to assassinate the person, the rival to the throne that's causing, who's already declared war with a blockade. We're going to assassinate them, not because they're the rival to the throne who's caused the blockade, but because this dude is personally upset at the fact or personally blames her for the death of their heir. I mean, and that's a legitimate reason too. But of course, we know that she's not really responsible. It's Damien. And again, I called it. I said, I think the way that they're framing this is that they're going to blame everything on the men. They're going to try to make it so that this entire conflict is because of men. And I think that's sort of panning out. Because again, it's not panning out as in this is what they're writing. It's panning out as in this is how it's being interpreted. Right? Because again, if Daemon has to take responsibility for his strange little smile leading to the miscommunication, does Rhaenyra not have to take responsibility for her literally saying, I want Aemon Targaryen. I want you to kill this person. Or no, she didn't say that. She just said, I want him. I don't know. Maybe she meant to say, I want him for tea. Like in this context. Are you following any of this? I'm sorry. I'm probably not saying it very well.
It's all right. I'm just here to be a receptacle. So you can go ahead and dump your criticisms, frustrations, whatever. I haven't watched the show and I don't plan to, so I don't really have that.
I would really like this show to start making sense in terms of what it's doing militarily, to be honest. Like, I would really like it to start making sense. And these people to stop acting like extremely emotionally fraught teenagers and start acting like the advisors to heads of state and heads of state,
Yeah.
And this excessive amount of retarded drama. I'm sorry. Daemon had a very good point when he said, let's go after a legitimate military target. Rhaenyra, the terrorist aunt, I'll just call her terrorist aunt. Terrorist aunt did not have a legitimate rejoinder. I'm sorry. If Rhaenyra can declare a blockade, she can schlep her ass back to her advisors and prosecute the war that she has started. Because the blockade, that is 100% the start of the war. Okay? That is where war starts. That is the beginning of a war. There is now war. Rhaenyra has declared war. She has taken the first actions to prosecute an war. If she can do that, she can stay there and either delegate the prosecution to the war, make it very clear between terrorist aunt and designated demon which one she wants to make the decisions for her. She should have delegated and then gone off and grieved, or she should have stayed and dealt with what she did, which was declare war with that blockade, right? And the fact that Daemon is making reasonable suggestions like, let us go take out a military target that is a threat to our blockade, that is not something that is, like, it's not a bad thing, right? Once Rhaenyra declares war, you have to wage it. You have to be tactically minded. And it is absolutely rich for terrorist aunt to go after him for being bloodthirsty. Rich. Okay. That's assuming that these characters are supposed to stay consistent episode to episode. Sir Cole saying that we should take out the other claimant to the throne that is declaring war on us, aggressing against us by having a blockade, causing suffering by trying to starve us to capitulate to whatever terms she sent, that is legitimate, especially in the time period that we're talking about, which is apparently the High Middle Ages. Assassinating a rival claimant to the throne, legitimate military tactic, especially after that rival claimant has declared war on you. Why is he being seen as evil? Like, okay, this is war. Okay?
Yeah.
If Rhaenyra didn't want war, she shouldn't have started a freaking blockade. If she didn't want war, she should have abdicated her throne. It doesn't matter if she thinks that her children are going to die. Like, yeah, then if you think your children are going to die, then fight the war that you started. Oh, good Lord. And so this show is trying to present the men in the wrong. They're not in the wrong. Kristen is only in the wrong insofar as he's allowing personal, petty bullshit to motivate him, but his choice is perfectly within the realm of reasonable in the process of war. I mean, hell, killing Rhaenyra at this point will cause a lot of suffering of everybody. People are suffering now. It's a blockade. They're starving. They're not getting necessary medical supplies. All of that other crap, right? So she is causing suffering. She's causing the population of King's Landing to suffer. Assassinating her is legitimate. Now, it's not like justice. I mean, in this day and age, it would be, very bad. And even then, killing a supposed regent or a potential regent was also sort of, but still, take out. I mean, if you consider the coup, and I know we don't consider the coup to be legitimate, they are in the throne. The people who are involved in usurping the throne, and they did have a claim according to the law of the land. So, if they are the legitimate government, what Rhaenyra is doing is terrorism. Even if we just recognize the rival claimants to the throne, killing her still is politically on the table. She is presenting herself as a political power. She has to deal with the consequences of that. And one of those consequences is a potential assassination. You don't like that, then cede the throne, period. Especially at that time. Anyway, so Sir Kristen Cole is presenting a reasonable option. One of the problems that I'm having with this is that assassination in this setting is so freaking easy.
Yeah.
Like Tweedledum and Tweedledee just wander around the palace until they find a target. This guy is the twin of a guard in the other castle. And apparently this guard has access to the Queen's chamber. Okay. And there's actually a really hilarious scene. It's something that you won't notice unless you watch carefully, but when the twin confronts the other twin, so you got the two twins, one is on one side, one is on the other. Oh my God, it's symbolism, Brian. It's brothers killing each other over a civil war. Oh my God, it's so delicious. Such catharsis. Anyway, so you got these two freaking twins killing each other in the Queen's bedchamber. No other guards, by the way. Nobody's like hearing swords clashing in the big Queen's bed, or the princess, the princess heir, Rhaenyra. So I keep calling her queen. I really apologize. I'm making this more confusing. So they have these two guards, these two men fighting with swords in the princess's chamber. Nobody else comes by. Oh my holy freaking God. I'm like, okay. And then the queen and the her handmaiden are stuck in there. And so she sends the handmaiden out and she's like, go flee, go get help. Like, shit. Every guard in the palace in this castle should be right there. But no, okay. Go get help. Go tell people things are happening. And then somebody comes in their some dude comes with a sword in his like night shift.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know, he jumped right off the toilet to go protect the queen. They couldn't find one that was suited up, even though the guy who was the twin infiltrating the palace, he passed a whole bunch of other guards going up. Now we can only find one dude in a night shift with a sword. Anyway, so he comes in and he's like getting to the queen and he's like, save yourself, Highness, I'll distract them. And she runs towards the door and it's locked. And she's like, I can't open the door. Somebody locked me in from the outside. I'm like, how did the handmaiden leave? Why didn't she use that door? Why is this door locked? Why is it locked? Why is the queen's chamber locked or the princess's chamber locked from the outside? Who put a lock like that there? Like, isn't that the exact opposite of security?
Seems that way.
Security is an unknown thought in Westeros. So anyway, we have these shenanigans, and one of the guards kills the other guard and then commits suicide because symbolism, right? Oh God. I think she eventually gets out of the room. So there you go. There was success. Let's see what else happens. Oh, yes, she banishes her husband. Geez, he could have helped you there. I feel so bad for Daemon. It's like he has to take responsibility for misinterpreting. I want Aemon Targaryen. No, he has to take but also responsibility for other people misinterpreting a smile. He didn't even say anything, but he has to take responsibility for their misinterpretation. She won't take responsibility for basically telling him, I want Aemon Targaryen. Well, bitch, what was he supposed to do? What was the interpretation of that? But she won't take responsibility for it. But he's got to take responsibility for what he done. Oh, good Lord. Which is again, killing the rider of the dragon that's your biggest military threat, legitimate military target. I think that these men are just being treated like the problem because they're actually competent. They're actually dealing with reality as it is. Oh, good Lord. Anyway, so Daemon is off doing other things. Honestly, I wish the show would just switch to him now. Let's just go see Daemon Adventures. Let's go see Dime Store Elric of Melbourne Adventures. No, not Melbourne. Elric. You know Elric?
Yeah, Elric. That's almost been made into a thing multiple times. I don't know. I don't think we want that though. I don't think Hollywood's in the place. It needs to be a fan-made thing. Absolutely, it needs to be a fan-made thing. So
Hollywood needs to not keep its mitts on that.
It's a melon bone. I don't know. But there already is The Witcher, which is essentially a ripoff, but also went to shit. Probably always. I mean, Henry Cavill was trying to make it work because he's a big fan of the source material, but he couldn't do it, man. Witcher is dead. So
okay, I'm just. It would be any one of these men would make a better story. I hate to tell you because they're proactive. They're actually dealing with the circumstance as it is. I mean, and also,
I mean, I'm sure it would have been. I'm sure it would have been, but I just don't see like the entertainment industry doing it justice. I think they would just bastardize it and destroy it. I mean,
Rhaenyra doesn't have to take responsibility for saying something ambiguous, but Daemon has to take responsibility for an ambiguous smile. Like that's just, it's fucking. I just hope he left for a better show. Anyway, it was It was a thing that happened. It was a thing that I watched. And again, I'm finding it difficult because
it's getting harder to watch it.
It's got these emotional moments, but it seems to sacrifice any kind of consistent characterization or plot setting to really. And what are the Hightowers freaking? What does Otto freaking do? Like Otto is the father of Alicent, the Queen Dowager. What is he? He keeps saying we gotta hold fast. Hold fast to what? You're experiencing a blockade. A blockade is going to reduce your military effectiveness. That's the point. One of the points of a blockade is to basically starve you so you can't wage war, right? So what are you holding fast for? You're just going to sit there being starved for what? Do you have some big like military thing that's going to happen that's going to totally turn the tides of war?
Yeah.
If you don't, you shouldn't be holding fast. You should probably be baiting them into some kind of pitched battle, depending on what is available to you. It's just it's like it's not a war. It's not the kind of war you would expect from history. It more is like two women waging a kind of Cold War, and we got to choose. You got to choose sides. You're either with me or you're with her. And just like it's awful crap. And what's really egregious, I've heard that this is based on the anarchy where I think it was Henry I of England gave his throne to Empress Matilda, which was his daughter. And then there were other claimants to the throne because he couldn't get all the lords to support her. And there was other shenanigans. And so it's not really based on Elizabeth versus Mary of Scots. if they had based it on Elizabeth versus Mary of Scots, it would have probably been a lot more interesting. But again, as I've said multiple times, both of those women represented different philosophical approaches to, well, basically social expectations, mores, religion, etc. So they represented something. They represented a conflict more than just, I don't even know what Rhaenyra and Alicent represent. I guess they're supposed to be the conflict between being a modern empowered woman, Princess Rhaenyra, and Alicent, who's a conservative trad wife or something.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the way that they made this conflict relatable. Because we couldn't look at two women with strong opinions about well, basically a social philosophy like Catholicism versus Protestantism. Like we couldn't look at that. Like that, those are basically social. Like they're philosophies. You know, there's spiritual, religious, and moral implications to them. We can't look at two women with convictions having a political disagreement about how best to rule the country. We can't look at that. Like, then that's something that's interesting because it's about, hey, which system works? Which system, maybe works politically? I mean, doesn't that sound more interesting than this? And so you have scenarios in history in which women were at odds, but there was a hell of a lot more depth to it than this. There was reasons, like Queen Elizabeth wasn't necessarily in charge because she wanted to smash the patriarchy, nor did Mary, Queen of Scots. It's because she wanted to advocate for a particular type of philosophical system, a particular type of religion. She had convictions. She had principles, right? That's interesting. Principled people fighting, principled people contending with each other over principles. It's really interesting. Magneto and Xavier, the best parts of the representation of their relationship is that the contention between people who have different principles, neither of which is completely wrong or completely right. Maybe Magneto's more wrong than right. Fair enough. But like this is interesting stuff. And what we get is two women who I don't even think they have any convictions whatsoever. Is Rhaenyra convinced, at least convinced, that she needs to have the throne? Is Alicent convinced that Rhaenyra shouldn't have the throne? Are there any convictions at all? Or are these women just floating through life and the men are doing everything, even though the men are apparently doing it wrong, even though everything that they're recommending is actually a legitimate military action? Like the only thing so far that Rhaenyra has done is start a war. Fine. You started a war. Why? Was it just because your son was killed? Do you have any convictions? Do you have any principles? Do you have, like I said, even the conviction that she should sit the throne? Something. Like she's just, it's so freaking, it's like every time I watch this, I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Can we, is it because this is aimed at an audience of women and Hollywood doesn't think that women can handle a discussion of philosophy or principle or convictions? Like it all has to be about this inability to shit and get off the pot? I mean, I don't know how many times Alicent's father has to tell her that probably war will be necessary. Bitch, you're being blockaded. What the fuck do you think that means? So anyway, this is episode 2 in revisiting why women should not be leaders.
Yeah.
And it really bugs me that Rhaenyra will not take responsibility for a misinterpretation. And we had this whole, and what really drives the point home that this is ridiculous is there was this whole sort of lecture that the king got that everybody heeds the word of a king. King speaks, everyone listens. Rhaenyra speaks, says something really ambiguous, supposedly ambiguous. I don't think it's that ambiguous. Daemon listens, but it's not her fault. But when a king speaks, if people misinterpret what he says, it's his fault. But when a queen speaks, if people misinterprets what she says, it's their fault. And also, if that very person is in turn misinterpreted, that's his fault. That's what I've learned. I've learned that once again, Nicholson, what is it? What is his first name?
Mads Mikkelsen?
No,
Mikkelsen.
in Shining.
Oh, Jack Nicholson?
Jack Nicholson.
Jack Nicholson's character.
Yeah,
well, Jack Nicholson is the actor. The character's name is Jack, though.
Jack Nicholson, but I think it was in another film where he plays an author.
Oh, As Good as It Gets.
As Good as It Gets. And he says, I think of a man.
How do you write women so well? He says, I think of a man and I remove what does he say? Logic and accountability or something like that.
Accountability, yep.
Reason and accountability is what he
Reason and accountability.
Says. Yes. Yeah.
But wouldn't that be great? Like wouldn't a series on take the women in history, because this is, I'm not like pulling this out of my ass. Like they had convictions. Like every time I read about women in history that were in power, they do not look like Alicent or Princess Daenerys. They had convictions. Yeah. I mean, even if the conviction was my family should be in power, they had them. And it was interesting to watch them pursue those convictions in the face of conflict and opposition. That's what makes women in power in history fascinating. Why is that not here? Like, can anybody name Alicent or Rhaenyra's conviction? I mean, I think somebody said that she wants to be queen because of her father. Well, then she's just got her father's conviction. Like, I want to see her. I want to see what her goal is. What she wants to bring to the realm. Anything. Anyway. Yeah. Anything to hang your hat on. Okay. All right. So I think that this has been adequate. So I will. Sure. Oh, wait. I think we got Super Chows, maybe. Nope, we don't. That was just you. All right. So if you enjoy this content, you can support it at feedthebadger.com/support. If you want to make a commentary on anything that I've said, I'm sure that I have angered many with this. You can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip or in the comments. If you want to tell us, we're not shouting into the void, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. You get to avoid YouTube's comment enhancement system and you get to help us out. So win-win. All right. I guess, do you want to? I
can take us out because I'm still running it on OBS. So, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, do you want me to ask them to share the video? Share the video.
Yeah, share the video.
Why not? Because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out on this what do you call it? Retrospective on what? Game of Thrones episode House of the Dragon, yeah.
Season 2, episode 2.
Yeah, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one. Have a good one, everybody.
Are machines, dude. Okay, they are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.